Andy, welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, Keith. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm in the Northwest and I have allergies. So it's like, oh man, but the sun's out and it's like beautiful and you know, I'll take it because the Northwest when the sun comes out is amazing. So I can deal with my allergies later.
We live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. I agree.
Yeah.
So I also have allergies, and I'm happy to be here. And I'll put up with stuffy nose and watery eyes for
Yeah.
the quality of life.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. It's like it's so beautiful. Are you crying? Like, no, no.
No.
I'm excited to have you on because there's a lot of real estate agents out there wanting to learn about like who can they refer business to in commercial real estate, and they're not, when you go through the exam, it really doesn't talk a whole lot about the opportunities that are available. So I'm excited to have you on so you can share a little bit about your story, the work that you do, and how residential agents can be more productive in referring to a commercial real estate agent. Before we jump into that, can you share a little bit about your background, like how you got started in commercial real estate?
Well, first, thanks for the invitation to join you on your podcast. I'm honored to be here. And commercial real estate, probably like a lot of, excuse me, residential agents, I entered the business trying to figure out where I wanted to be, knowing that my end game was commercial, but I didn't really know how to get there. I moved to the Pacific Northwest 6 years ago, and I didn't know anybody. So I spent my early career on the residential side of the business because I own residential rentals and I had bought and sold enough of my own houses. So I figured just through getting started somewhere, networking, meeting people, somebody eventually was going to lead me to somebody who was in commercial real estate that we would get connected. And I met my business partner probably about 5 years ago and through a mutual friend who was a business banker. And, it wasn't like magical chemistry that we decided to work together. We kind of just watched each other on social media, and I would call him occasionally. But at the beginning of pandemic, I honestly don't remember which residential client it was, but I was absolutely fed up. And I just called him and I said, hey, if you're looking for, a partnership or somebody to help you, I'm ready to make the move. And we sat down and worked out a contract. And it was the best thing that I ever did. And I don't want to say I wish I did it sooner because I just don't feel like I was ready to do it. But we commenced our partnership in March of 2020, right at COVID.
Hmm.
And it was the best thing that I've ever done on this career. So we've been working together for a little over 3 years and have really grown our friendship and business relationship into a 50-50 partnership. And so I was lucky, but there was a lot of hard work laying the groundwork to make that connection happen. And so it's possible if you're willing to do the things that maybe you don't feel comfortable doing to find somebody. Because I really believe that commercial real estate it's so unlike residential. It's not as rote with the contracts and the process. So if you don't really have a mentor, somebody that's willing to help you, you can do a lot of damage to your clients. Not that you can't
Hmm.
in residential, but with commercial, there's just so many things that you need to know. And, especially for inexperienced commercial buyers and sellers that don't know, they're looking to you and you're getting paid for your expertise. That if you don't know it, you really need to have somebody walking alongside you to, have the confidence that you're giving your clients correct and accurate information.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it about commercial that intrigued you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The first thing was I didn't want to keep working nights and weekends. I came from a career 15 years in local governments, tons of night meetings,
Yeah.
3, 4 nights a week, some weekend events. I used to be a parks and recreation director. So weekend events, night events. And I felt like 15 years of evenings and weekends on a job was just something I didn't want to spend the rest of my life doing. And, we talk about work life balance, and I admire the residential agents that can find work life balance. But
Hmm.
I felt like the time that I wanted to be unplugging from work was when a lot of clients want to go look at houses. And, I treat either residential or commercial business like a job. I start working 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and I work into the evening. So, by 5, 6 o'clock, when somebody wants to go look at a house, I've already been working all day
Hmm.
and I'm tired,
Yeah.
and, if you treat the business like a job, like I did, 40 hours a week, come the weekend, you kind of want some decompression time. And
Hmm.
that's not necessarily when, it's when you're doing open houses. And so I just kind of wanted to have an opportunity to have a little bit more work life balance in this career. So that was kind of the first motivation. And I really think my personality suits me better working with business people, kind of being a little bit more direct, not as much. I don't need to be a cheerleader. I don't need to try to sell you on anything. It's like, you have a problem, you need a place for your business. This is what your budget is. This is what's available in that location that fits your budget and maybe some of your criteria. And so, I'm not showing you 20, 30 properties. I'm maybe
Hmm.
showing you one,
Yeah.
one that's going to meet your criteria. And so I just like the business aspect. And as we were talking earlier, having conversations with how other business owners make money. It's fascinating, the things that people come up with to find a way to make a living. I
Yeah.
get to meet all these really intriguing people doing things that never would have thought of as a kid or even as
Right.
an adult. Like, you can make money doing that. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, that's cool. I don't want
Right.
to steal your idea. I just,
Yeah.
it's very, I learn a lot of things about different industries that I knew not. I've known nothing about owning a bar or a restaurant till we've had bar and restaurant clients. And I knew it was tough, and I know it's a high fail rate, but just a little bit more of the intricacies of people's livelihoods.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely different, right? It's like you're talking about, like being able to have that work-life balance. That's something I didn't even think about, is like, yeah, like I work with business owners a lot too, and we work together during business hours. not
And not
not
to say that I don't
Yeah,
work
yeah, yeah.
weekends. Like, if I have a
Yeah.
client that texts me something,
Right.
it's not that I don't respond, but, if I have an agent, typically a residential agent, ask me for information on a listing on the weekend, I tell them I will get back to you on Monday.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to happen today.
Hmm.
Our assistant works Monday through Friday. We write contracts, unless it's something we're kind of like jumping on, and there's really a driving need. I really try to protect some of that work-life balance time. And again, not to say that I don't work evenings. I network in the evenings. It's just how we've met. I do go to events in the evening. I volunteer in the evening. I'm active with my Rotary group and things like that. But, just trying to kind of lay a little bit more of a framework and a foundation for a life that, in a career that I want to be doing for the next 20, 30 years. I don't think I could sustain a life working 7 days a week, and the way agents, I feel like I had to perform as a residential agent to, build a business and build a life. And I admire the agents that do, because I know
Yeah.
there are agents that say, I don't work Saturdays, or I don't return phone calls after 6 p.m. I admire agents that could do that. I know my personality that I would not ever be able to do
Yeah. 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 Me
that.
either. Me either. You call me, I'm
uh,
like, yep, what do we need to do? Let's do it.
yeah,
I'm
let's do it. Let's
like
do it. Yeah.
Saturday, 8 p.m. All right, cool. Got it. Meet you
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and while you're building your business, and I will, if I have somebody that's like, hey, I have a referral for you, I'll email them the form on the
Yeah.
weekend, but then I just
Yeah.
tell them I'll call them on Monday.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's not to say that I don't, but it's like I have more control over
Yeah.
that, because I expect that most business owners can, work Monday through Friday, and that's when I want to work.
Yep. Yep. What areas of commercial real estate do you focus on?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I really don't have a specific niche. My business partner, who is my mentor, my coach, and my partner, my business partner, he, started his career in Bend, and it was a small market,
Hmm.
before technology. And at
Mm-hmm.
the time, to feed his family, he learned to do everything, because
Yeah.
that's where his business was. And so,
Mm-hmm.
taking that model, I'm learning from him. And I think it's a great philosophy that, we really don't ever turn down a referral. We don't turn down clients. I think there's one listing we ever said we didn't think we could help. The guy owned a boat repair marina in Central Washington. And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically selling a job. It's very specific, trying to find a mechanic that works on boats. So it was like, we didn't think we could help him, because it's not like, oh, I could just go buy a marina and, learn the job. So, we really try to be able to work with anybody, whether it's a lease client that's looking for a space to lease, like a tenant, or
Mm-hmm.
landlord that has space to lease. We'll cover, pretty much anywhere in the Pacific Northwest for the right type of client, the right type of property. But anything from industrial to multifamily, office space,
Mm-hmm.
retail, development land, we have listings in all of those categories, redevelopment projects. So we're really agnostic in the type of client and property type that we work with.
Okay. Got it. And so for a realtor that's, out working with clients that they may be business owners, like what are some of the questions that they can ask their client to know whether they should bring you into a conversation?
Mm. Well, if it comes up in the conversation about, where their office or their business might be located. Like, let's say they're talking about their business is really growing and they need more space. If that
Mm-hmm.
comes up in the conversation, we can help them find a larger location. Maybe it's coming up that they're going to have some proceeds from a sale of a property, and they might be buying something else and they're looking to do something with their business, or perhaps they're again moving in from out of the area, relocating their business and need to find a location. We certainly can help facilitate sales and purchases of property if they're moving their business, or if they're moving to town and they need a space to operate out of, helping them find a location to get launched here. Those are maybe some things that a business owner might mention.
Got it. Got it. What are some of the best practices? Like, I've worked with residential realtors and referring them to yourself and other commercial real estate agents. There seems to be, a lot of residential brokerages don't cover this topic of like, how do you work with a commercial real estate agent? Are there any like insights or best practices that you would recommend that real estate agents keep in mind as they're referring you,
Mhm.
or a commercial real estate agent in general?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, just like with any residential client, is getting complete information,
Yeah.
name, phone number, email. I've had referrals where that information wasn't really provided, and it's a cold lead, and
Mm-hmm.
I can drive around and cold call businesses. So really just kind of getting some basic information, and it's helpful just to understand what they're trying to do. Buy a building, they're trying to find a place to lease, what areas, what parts of town. That's helpful. But I mean, obviously it's my job to do more of the follow-up and get some details. And then I think the other thing that a residential agent really needs to know is it will likely be months till you get that referral check. I really pride myself on being in communication, like, hey, I've sent them properties, or they're not responding, or
Mm-hmm.
we're going to look at stuff, or we have a lease, we're getting closer. But especially when it comes to leasing property, the checks aren't held in escrow. So you're really waiting for the property owner to write the listing brokerage a check, and then you're hoping they're going to cut a check, and then we've got to cut a check. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of steps in there that
Yeah.
it's certainly, commercial's not quick money. I know in
Mm-hmm.
residential it's like, well, hey, you'll get your first check in 30 days. That's still wishful thinking, in my opinion, because I think it was
Right.
like
Yeah.
5 or 6 months till I got my first residential check,
Yeah.
just to prospect and get
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really try to tell people, like, hey, the lead's dead, or I'll kick it back to you and say, hey, they're not
Yeah.
even returning my phone calls anymore.
Yeah.
So I can't, there's nothing I can do about that.
Mm.
But I think, those open lines of communication, just like residential agents are with their clients, really important in our line of work too.
Yeah.
Communicate with the agent and with the client.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we stay out of the way, right? Like, I
Mhm.
referred a client over. They ran into some situations where they have a lot going on in their business, so they haven't really like followed through completely, right, on looking for that next location for their business. They were super hot to try when they came to me about it. I was like, I thought this was like serious for you, but they also asked questions like, they were looking at a property and they asked me, hey, is this what it costs, right? Like, I heard they were looking at this really premium location, I guess, and it was like, is this really what it costs? And like, I think for a residential agent, or even for myself, who likes to be like, we want to serve people, like, there was a tendency, I think, for me to maybe want to jump in and like, I don't know, let me find out. But I was like, I don't know. Whatever she told you is what it is, because she's the best in the business. So, like, what's the best way for, us that are out there working with clients and referring them to you, or residential agents that are out there working with people that are referring them to you? What's the best way for us to get all the right information, but also not be the person who like feels like we have to answer every question that the customer asks us, so that we can make sure that you remain the authority on leading them through whatever they need to know as it relates to the commercial side of the business, so it doesn't get messy?
Well, it's really tough because the database that we use, that's the broker to broker typically site, CoStar, is really, really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And as a commercial broker, when we advertise our listings on LoopNet, we also have to pay in addition, even though CoStar owns LoopNet for that. So
Yeah.
not all the information is out there on
Mm-hmm.
LoopNet. And so it's really hard when residential agents ask me for the information. I just say,
Yeah.
well, yeah, you either have to pay for it or you have to refer it. So
Yeah.
when I am getting the information, sometimes it might say the price is disclosed, inquire. And when I do, the answer is the answer. I mean,
Yeah.
there maybe are some things that we can do to negotiate a little bit in terms of some rent abatement or, some different things, some tenant improvement money. But, by and large, things are just like buying a house, in this market when there's still not a lot of supply and pretty big demand. There's not a whole lot of room to negotiate the price. You're not going to see a house listed for 800,000 and buy it for 7. Maybe you could
Right.
get it for 795 or 790,
Right.
maybe on a good day. But it's similar in commercial. There's not this huge range of negotiation that you
Yeah.
see something listed, because I tell people all the time, property owners have bigger pocketbooks than you and I do. So maybe they have vacancy insurance. They can
Mhm.
afford to let stuff sit there, and they're not going to take any tenant, any price, any lease rate just because it sits there vacant, and to the average person driving by, well,
Right.
wow, that's been vacant for 3 years, Andy. They should take half the price. I had somebody, a referral from a residential agent, call me and say, we want to write a letter of intent for a space and we want to write it at half list price. And I told them to go pound sand. I was like, I can't help you. That's insulting to the property owner. It looks bad on me as a professional.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to look bad to a colleague in the business. And I'm not going to waste my time. So I
Yeah.
called the residential agent. I said, this is what they were trying to do, and I can't help them. And they were
Yeah.
like, no way. I would never write an offer for a house at half price,
Yeah.
right? Same
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, the space that they were looking at is still vacant, because
Yeah.
I am sure they didn't find any
Mm.
commercial agent worth their salt willing to write a letter of intent and offer on a piece of property for half price. Like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how
Yeah.
this works.
Right. Yeah. That's good
So,
to know, because those are really good examples of of I think you don't hear these concepts, and sometimes you can see something play out on the residential side of the market, and then you try to apply that to the commercial, and it's a completely different world.
mhm,
So I think it's really important that you shared that, because I think when you're referring a client over, you have to understand that it's not something that you're referring them out to a professional because for a reason. Number
right.
one, it's not something that you study or that you practice. So let's not participate in any malpractice here. Let's get them in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, who's paying for the tools, who's paying for the technology to do a great job for the client, which if you do a great job for the client, they're going to get the deal closed. They're going to pay you out. And then you have an example, right, where you can
Mhm,
actually go out there and serve more business owners, and you can
right.
speak to them about a broader opportunity in terms of being able to serve them. But also, what makes that work is by having people like Andy in your corner that are going to take great care of people, right?
And I think the other thing, when you buy a realtor, you're compensating them for their skill. You're also compensating them for their relationships,
Mm-hmm.
their contacts, their them helping to grease the skids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we think there's a problem with the roof. Let's get a roofer out here. Part of what that is their connections and their relationships with people. And it's the same in commercial, right? I have relationships with colleagues in the business, just like residential realtors do. You have relationships with the agents you've done business with, and I have those relationships too on the commercial side.
Mm-hmm.
I know the guys that will try and withhold commission. I know the guys that won't call me back and require 5 phone calls. So if they're not calling you back, residential agent, I know why, because
Mm-hmm.
I know that they also have a challenge returning my phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Or people that you don't want to do business with. And I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
the same in any industry.
Yeah.
And it's no different in commercial. So when you hire a commercial broker, you're hiring somebody that has the knowledge and expertise to know who is a good commercial inspector, who
Mm-hmm.
who do you want to use and work with, who's responsive, that what title companies understand how to do escrow and holdbacks on lease or security deposits and things like that. Not
Mm-hmm.
every escrow officer is going to do well on a development piece of property or things like that. That's what you're paying for, is
Yep.
somebody who's maybe has that expertise because maybe they've gone through it
Yep.
before. So yeah.
Yep. Is there anything else that you'd like a residential agent or people that are listening in? Anything else you'd like them to know about either your business or what it's like running a commercial real estate practice?
Well, I would invite anybody that has any questions. If you're a realtor or thinking about getting into commercial, don't know where to start, or, don't really understand the business, I'm always
Mm-hmm.
open for phone calls and conversations. I probably have a conversation with the residential realtor at least once a month about
Mm-hmm.
the business or, commercial real estate. So I'm always happy to have a conversation with folks, because I know when I tried to get into the business, commercial brokers wouldn't meet with me. It was very, very difficult to have anybody have a coffee with me and just talk about commercial real estate.
Yeah.
outside of my business partner. So I know how difficult it is, and I want to be able to, pay it forward and put it back into the community. And so if you're interested in having a conversation either about making the move to commercial real estate, or just, want to learn more about referrals or ways we can compensate you, we paid out tens of thousands of dollars last year in referral fees. And, it's an important part of our business to take care of our residential agents. So, I'll always do my best to call you back and communicate with you, whether it's a referral or, if you have any questions within, certain parameters. I'm also, to either guide you where I can maybe help you find the information, or, let you know that, hey, I'll help you out with a referral fee, but, otherwise you need to figure out another way to kind of move forward with what you're doing with your client.
I love it. I love it. I'll make sure I add all of your contact information to our show notes so that people can reach out to me directly too if they'd like to get an intro, and I can patch them into you via email. And I just want to first off just say thank you for taking the time to have the conversation, and then also for just your follow up. Right, like like I mentioned, like I've referred to other people in the space, and you're the best at communication, following up, being proactive with your relationships, and I just really appreciate that, and so do the clients that we work with. So I'll be sending you more people to work with, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Same here, Keith. I appreciate our friendship and our relationship that we've built over the years, and I look forward to continuing and growing that relationship with you.
Yeah, awesome,
All
awesome.
right.
Well, have a good rest of your day. Okay,
Thank you. You too. Take care.
you too.